Good morning. Sometimes I think it's pretty presumptuous of me to try to read a couple pages about a particular saint and then tell you about him, and then somehow I've summarized his life. I think there's a lot more to us than can be said in a few words. So today, I thought I'd try a different tact and just talk about Pope Francis, and not all of them, not cover them at all, but rather just talk about one document he wrote called Fratelli, Tutti. So as I start, I guess I have to say I really like being Catholic. I think it's a wonderful thing. And part of that, though, is perhaps a different understanding than many people have of what it is to be Catholic. Because the word Catholic means universal, which means it's basically everybody. There's an expression that says, here comes the church, here comes everybody. And so often in today with marketing type views on things, we think of different brands of religion or something. And there's only one God, so we all come to our God. In our what we call Vatican documents, which is a chapter called Lumen Gentium, which is the constitution of the church, it says, at all times and in every race, everyone who fears God and does what is right is acceptable to him. So the people of God is everyone whom God has created, because God is love and God creates people in love. And what's wonderful about that is when we say, what is the church? It's everybody. And be careful, because that definition opens up our perspective to say, wait a second, how do I make sense of this? Well, this document of Pope Francis is Fratelli Tutti, which basically means brothers all, and that's an expression that St. Francis used, where he described we're all brothers, and just was totally open to everyone. The Pope cites an example where Pope Francis early on went to see the Sultan in Egypt, and this is at a time of the Crusades. Francis didn't have a lot of money. He had to travel a long distance. There's issues of everything else. He comes up to the armed guards and says, well, I want to meet with the Sultan. They're so taken aback by this poor guy looking at him, saying he wants to talk to the Sultan, that they let him. They take him in, and they have a great discussion, and they walk away friends. What the Pope is saying is that we need to be a common ground with everyone. We can't sit back and say, oh, we've got the truth, so therefore let us curse everyone else. It is true we have the truth. We have a lot of truth, wonderful insights and abilities to get closer to God. Our church is a system of trying to get closer to God, and part of that is being with other people. And of course, when you're with other people, it drives you crazy. But he writes, and I'm going to quote him a few times here, if you could bear with me. Pope Francis writes, only the man who approaches others, not to draw them into his own life, but to help them become ever more fully, can truly be called a father. So what he's saying is we have to deal with everyone with respect. The main thing he will push throughout this document is dialogue, and a certain openness to that, and that provides a hope, and that hope might prove capable of responding to a new vision of fraternity and social friendships that will not remain at the level of words. In other words, we can't just talk about this, we have to actually do it. And I think a part of that is having that respect, that I'm not here to change you and to tell you that I'm all right, and you've got to understand how wrong you are because you're a Protestant, or you're Islam, or you're Buddhist, or you're a Muslim, or you're in the Eastern Church, or you're into spirituality. No, it is to start with a fundamental respect of the person to whom we are dealing with. Give me just a couple of seconds here. To care for the world in which we live means to care for ourselves. Yet we need to think of ourselves more and more as a single family dwelling in a common home. Now, he had a previous document where he talked about the environment and such, Laudate Se, and in that document, he basically emphasized the fact that bad things in the earth trickle down to the poorest of people, and they suffer the most because of it. But in this one, it's interesting to know that if we look at our perspective in trying to do things well, we do them from a perspective of respect for other people and a concern for the poor. But as with Russia invading Ukraine, every threatening situation breeds mistrust and leads people to withdraw into their own safety zone. Fear becomes our biggest problem for having peace, and he emphasizes that. Now, he has the audacity, and I say audacity, to proclaim that we should have a world government, and a world government which helps to enforce the good policies. But underneath all of that, what he really wants is those who are different to sit together and dialogue with each other with a mutual respect. As we get more and more polarized, both between us and other religions, between Republicans, Democrats, between conservatives, liberals, whatever it is, in church, out of church, are we dealing with those whom we don't see as the same way with respect? And that's kind of the big issue he pushes. He will go on to say, if we only might rediscover once and for all that we need one another, in this way our human family can experience a rebirth. So it's not an issue of I'm wrong or I'm right. That's on the sidelines of things. What we're trying to understand is the whole human family. And to be a whole family, we can't have the black sheep that just leaves and goes off and doesn't talk to other people. We need the whole family because there's something about protecting everybody that makes us whole. If we have a part of us that is not together, it's not making us whole. He talks about immigrants as well. In some host countries, migration causes fear and alarm, doesn't it here? Often fermented and exploited for political purposes. We forget the very dignity of every human being. If you're in Mexico and say you thought, hey, that might be a good idea to go to the United States, and you apply, you have to wait at least 20 years right now. 20 years. How many people could come in and add value to our country? But I'm getting off track. I apologize. What Francis would say is the ability to sit down and listen to others is typical of interpersonal encounters, is paradigmatic of the welcoming attitude shown by those who transcend narcissism and accept others, caring for them and welcoming them into their lives. This is big. This is personal. It's not governments have to come together. It's you and I need to be able to sit with people who don't disagree or who don't agree with our thoughts, but to deal in the mutual respect. Because it's always the case, whether you come... Excuse me. It is always the case. If you come from one spot or another, if you have more in common than we have dividing between us. And so let us today consider how we might discuss with others who don't agree with us and to try to come to a good feeling with those people. It would be a good try for the day.